Hello, this is Willie from the Ozarks, and we're ready for March the 22nd's lesson in A Course in Miracles Workbook for Students, which is Lesson 81, which is going to be our first lesson in the review, and it'll be Lesson 61 and 62 review. I am the light of the world, and forgiveness is my function as the light of the world. We will look at that and the directions for reviewing it in just a moment. Before we do, let's take just a moment and recap yesterday's lesson. Lesson 80, let me recognize my problems have been solved. I think I said that also. I want to mention that I did say that yesterday was the equinox, first day of spring. I stood corrected by some of my adult children mentioned that it was actually on the 20th this year. You know, generally speaking, it's on the 21st of the equinoxes and the solstices are on the 21st of the months, but it sometimes is on the 20th and the 22nd. I usually just count it the 21st. But when you look at it astronomically, it can fall on those other days. So anyway, lesson 80 was let me recognize my problems have been solved. Did you find that peace that you were encouraged to find? Knowing that the problem and the answer are together, and that your freedom from conflict has been given you. Accept the fact, and you're ready to take your rightful place in God's plan for salvation. That was at the end of paragraph 1 in our lesson yesterday. So finding that peace, finding that one answer in all problems, there's that underlying consistency that forgiveness gives us the freedom that we're seeking. And that's, anyway, I hope you understood more about the one problem that you're in and the one solution that's in all of the problems, regardless of their form and their varied content. There's always a consistency in all those problems. And it makes that, and that consistency makes salvation simple. All right? Paragraph 8, it said, assure yourself often today that your problems have been solved. Repeat the idea with deep conviction as frequently as possible, and be particularly sure to remember to apply the idea for today to any specific problems that may arise. Say quickly, let me recognize this problem has been solved. All right. Let us be determined not to collect grievances today. Let us be determined to be free of problems that do not exist. Remember, no grievances. The means is simple honesty. Do not deceive yourself about what the problem is, and you must recognize it has been solved. All right? So some real honesty yesterday. So anyway, we're gonna go on. Lesson. Let me recognize my problems have been solved. And we will go on. Before we read, I'd like to show you some really beautiful parsleys that I've got ready to plant. I'm just kind of letting them grow in the windowsill. Actually, I'm setting these things outside, and they've been outside for a few days. Really perking up and doing nice. Curled parsley, really good for you, very cold hardy. These things can withstand, down into the teens for sure, and maybe even colder than that. You break the ice off and they do fine the next day. If it gets down to, 10 or 10 degrees, I know they're okay. All right, so let's go look at our lesson. We've got a page for review. It's review 2. We are now ready for another review. We will begin where our last review left off and cover 2 ideas each day. The earlier part of each day will be devoted to one of these ideas and the latter part of the day to the other. We will have one longer exercise period and frequent shorter ones in which we practice each of them. Okay, the earlier part of each day will be devoted to one of these ideas and the latter part of the day to the other. We will have one longer exercise period and frequent shorter ones in which we practice each of them. So we're going to have a longer 10 to 15 minute, I think it's going to be. Well, let's just go ahead and keep reading. The longer practice period will follow this general form. Take about 15 minutes for each of them, and begin by thinking about the idea and the comments which are included in the assignments. Devote about 3 or 4 minutes to reading them over slowly, several times if you wish, and then close your eyes and listen. Repeat the first phase if you find your mind wandering, but try to spend the major part of the practice period listening quietly but attentively. Okay, so each day we're going to take 15 minutes and we're going to start by just reading the lesson. So this is clearly 15 minutes of this is going to be used. And the first, I think he says 3 minutes or so, is going to be used at reading the lesson. And then we're going to spend the rest of the time listening attentively. Okay, so devote about 3 or 4 minutes to reading them over slowly, several times if you wish, and then close your eyes and listen. All right, so we're going to start this 15 minutes with eyes open, reading. He says read it over if you wish, several times, but let it settle in what it's saying on the 2 reviews. Repeat the first phase if you find your mind wandering, but try to spend the major part of the practice period listening quietly but attentively. So if you find your mind wandering, go back and read a little bit of the lesson and make sure that you have a good sense of what it's saying. Then close your eyes and listen attentively and quietly, it says. Paragraph 3. There's a message waiting for you. Well, that's nice to know. There's a message waiting for you. Be confident that you will receive it. Be confident that you will receive it. Remember that it belongs to you and that you want it. Remember that it belongs to you and that you want it. Do not allow your intent to waver in the face of distracting thoughts. Do not allow your intent to waver in the face of distracting thoughts. What are you going to do if distracting thoughts come along? You're going to go back and we're going to look at the lesson. I mean, first of all, we're going to dismiss them, and maybe they won't be a distraction. But if you can't seem to dismiss them and they keep coming back, then he says go back and read the introductory or the review again. Realize that whatever form such thoughts may take, they have no meaning and no power. Replace them with your determination to succeed. Replace the distracting thoughts with your determination to succeed after you've reminded yourself that these distracting thoughts have no meaning and no power. Do not forget that your will has power over all fantasies and dreams. Your will as the Son of God has power over all fantasies and dreams. Trust it to see you through and carry you beyond them all. Paragraph 4. Regard these practice periods as dedications to the way, the truth, and the life. The way, the truth, and the life. Refuse to be sidetracked into detours, illusions, and thoughts of death. Refuse to be sidetracked into detours, illusions, and thoughts of death. You are dedicated to salvation. Be determined each day not to leave your function unfulfilled. You are dedicated to salvation. Be determined each day not to leave your function unfulfilled. In the last paragraph, reaffirm your determination in the shorter practice periods as well, using the original form of the idea for general application and a more specific form when needed. Let's read that again. Reaffirm your determination in the shorter practice periods as well, using the original form of the idea for general application and more specific form when needed. Some specific form will be included in the comments. These, however, are merely suggestions. It is not the particular words you use that matter. We've covered that before. He doesn't want us just to use the italicized words and memorize them and think that we've got it. We want to get beyond the words themselves and recognize that it's not the particular words that matter. It's the content, not just the form, but the substance under it that we want to get a feeling of. All right? Okay, so now let's read the first lesson, 81, and it's made up of lessons 61 and 62. So we're going to review the last 20 lessons. I am the light of the world is lesson 61. And lesson 62, forgiveness is my function as the light of the world. All right? Okay, so let's our ideas for review today are, I am the light of the world. How holy am I, who have been given the function of lighting up the world? How holy am I, who have been given the function of lighting up the world? Wow, we're pretty holy if that's our function. Remember, Jesus said that ye are the light of the world. And when you light the candle, you set it up on something, on a mantle or something, so that everybody in the house can see. You don't put it under a basket so that the light's hidden. So ye are the light of the world. I am the light of the world. How holy am I, who have been given the function of lighting up the world. Let me be still before my holiness. In its calm light, let all my conflicts disappear. In its peace, let me remember who I am. In the light of peace, let me remember who I am. You know, when you're sitting still and quiet, that's what you're really learning to do, is be in touch with that true self, the light of the world. Let me remember who I am. Some specific forms for applying today's idea when specific difficulties seem to arise. So we're going to use this. And here's 3 examples he's given us. Even though these are italicized, I'm not encouraging you to memorize them. Unless that helps you, then by all means do so. But remember, you want to try to get the idea of how he's using I am the light of the world. And here's some examples. Let me not obscure the light of the world in me. Or, let the light of the world shine through this appearance. Or, this shadow will vanish before the light. All right, those all had to do with I am the light of the world. And if you feel a feeling to fall into the one problem, the grievances, the unforgivenesses, the darkness, well, then use one of these other forms and tell yourself, and I think that we need to be using, really be tuned in to using this as we need to throughout the day, several times an hour, but not so much that you're trying to do it by the time. I don't think he's not requiring that right now. He's just saying use it according to need. At least that was our last lesson, and I would expect that we would continue this. Okay, and then lesson 62 review. Forgiveness is my function as the light of the world. And this is you'll look at this one during the afternoon and the other one during the morning if you start your day in the morning. But anyway, the early part of your day, you'll bring to memory throughout the day, I am the light of the world. in its varying forms that you conceptualize. And the latter part of the day, forgiveness is my function as the light of the world. So let's read it now. It is through accepting my function that I will see the light in me. And in this light will my function stand clear and perfectly unambiguous before my sight. My acceptance does not depend on my recognizing what my function is, for I do not yet understand forgiveness. Wow, there's a lot to understand about forgiveness if we still don't understand it, because we've got a lot we're understanding. We're the light of the world. We're not to hold grievances. We lose our awareness if we do. But he's saying it's such a huge concept, such a beautiful, deep, connecting concept that you still don't understand it yet. So be attentive and listen. That's what he told us to do. I do not yet understand forgiveness, yet I will trust that in the light I will see it as it is. In the light I will see it as it is. Specific forms for using the idea might include, let this help me learn what forgiveness means. Or let me not separate my function from my will. Let me not separate my function from my will. Or I would not use this for an alien purpose. All right? So we understand what to do. We're going to spend 15 minutes. We're going to read through this page on Lesson 81, a time or two, whatever it takes. But spend the majority of that 15 minutes attentively listening, that there's a message for us in this. And we'll do this over the next 10 lessons, reviewing the last 20. All right? I am the light of the world, and forgiveness is my function as the light of the world. Until tomorrow, be at peace, see all God's good, and say to yourself often, in the morning and then in the afternoon, I am the light of the world for the earlier part of the day. The latter part of the day, forgiveness is my function as the light of the world.